Just begin to get settled here. I always like to move around a little bit, maybe stretch. We settle in for an hour of being together in Sangha. Finding your seat, feeling around, looking around at the people on the screen. Yeah. The intention of this Sunday Sangha is just to gather together in Sangha. And so building our Sangha here through chanting and contemplation and sitting, and dharma. And as people continue to roll in here, just settling a bit, might close the eyes and just feel into the body. Take a few deep breaths. And allowing the awareness to descend through the body. Tend to get very trapped in the head, which makes sense. But the Buddha talked about the body more than anything. And I think he did that because we have all of this space that's available to us. Come into the fullness of our experience. And as we do that, the thinking gets diluted a little bit. The body is here and now, the breath is here and now. The mind, the thinking is kind of stuck in the past. So we breathe the air and hear the sounds, and the eyes are open. Even if the eyes are closed, we see the light. Now let's take a nice big inhale through the nose. Just fill up. And let the air go out of the mouth. Yeah. And let's do that again. Nice big inhale. And let the air go. And one more time. Inhale. And as you let go, you can open the eyes if they were closed. You can bring the palms together. Just a little bow. It's an acknowledgement of this time that we have together and to one another, showing up today. All right. So again, thank you all so much for being here today. My name is Adam Stonebraker, and I'm a teacher with Sacred Mountain Sangha. If we haven't met before, welcome back, or welcome here again for the first time. The way that this works is it's 3 parts, really 4 parts to the Sunday morning Sangha. And so we chant, do some chanting, and I'll put the chants, I'll share my screen and have the chants up here on the screen. And then we'll sit for a bit with a little bit of guidance perhaps. And then there'll be some dharma sharing from me. And that will take up the hour. And then at the top of the hour, there's an optionally you can stay on for 15 more minutes for a little dharma discussion or some question asking. Yeah, so that's how we've been doing it. It seems to be working pretty well. So we'll start with some chanting here, and yeah, share my screen. There's some nice birds outside of my window. Hope they're not too loud. Okay. So we'll begin here by honoring the Buddha. Namo tassa. Yeah. And just so you don't have to think about it, I won't tell you what's next. So be here fully. Just pausing here for a moment again, allowing the energy awareness to descend through the space of the body and even out into the space around you. So we're not just simply chanting from the mind, we're chanting from our whole being here. If you'd like to, you can bring the palms together. Let's exhale together. And then inhale. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Let's move right down to the refuges here. Buddham saranam gacchami. Dhammang saranam gacchami. Sanghang saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi Dhammang saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi Sanghang saranam gacchami. Tatiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami. Tatiyampi Dhammang saranam gacchami. Tatiyampi Sanghang saranam gacchami. I'll just continue on to this chant on the next page, the recollection of the triple jewel, expanding upon the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha qualities. You can exhale together and inhale. Itipiso bhagava araham samma sambuddho bija charana sampano sugatolo kaviru anutaro purisattama sarati sata deva manusanam buddho bhagavan Tisabhakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko Ehipasiko Upanayiko Pachatam Vedita Bohubinu Hiti Supatipano Bhagavato Sabakasango Ujupatipano Bhagavato Sabakasango Naya Patipano Bhagavato Sabakasango Sami Chipatipano Bhagavato sabaka sango yadidam chattari purisa yugania tapurisa pugala esa bhagavato sabaka sango ahunahiyo pahunahiyo dakinahiyo anjali karaniyo anutaraham punyaketam loka sati. Just pause here for a moment, allowing that to absorb into the body, vibration, the sounds, these ancient syllables, language, going all the way back to the Buddha. I'd also like to take this time to reflect on just the lineages, the millions of practitioners over thousands of years who have lived these teachings, who have carried on these teachings, who through great sacrifice have brought these teachings to remote parts of the world. From South Asia, into East Asia, Southeast Asia, even into Afghanistan, and now today all over the world. Much gratitude. All right. Great. Let's move way down here to the Heart Sutra. Really like the Heart Sutra, Heart of Prajnaparamita Sutra. Prajna, of course, is wisdom. Paramita is perfection. And so the Heart of Perfect Wisdom Sutra. Now let us chant the Heart of Prajnaparamita Sutra. When Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara was practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, she illuminated the 5 skandhas and saw that they are all empty, and she crossed up beyond all suffering and difficulty. Shariputra, form does not differ from emptiness. Emptiness does not differ from form. Form itself is emptiness. Emptiness itself is form. So too are feeling, cognition, formation, and consciousness. Shariputra, all dharmas are empty of characteristics. They are not produced, not destroyed, not defiled, not pure, and they neither increase nor diminish. Therefore, in emptiness there is no form, feeling, cognition, formation, or consciousness. No eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, or mind. No sights, sounds, smells, tastes, objects of touch, or dharmas. No field of the eyes up to and including no field of mind consciousness. And no ignorance or ending of ignorance. Up to and including no old age and death or ending of old age and death. There is no suffering, no accumulating, no extinction, and no way, and no understanding and no attaining. Because nothing is attained, the Bodhisattva, through reliance on Prajnaparamita, is unimpeded in her mind. Because there is no impediment, she is not afraid, and she leaves distorted dream thinking far behind. Ultimately, nirvana. All Buddhas of the 3 periods of time attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi through reliance on Prajnaparamita. Therefore know that Prajnaparamita is a great spiritual mantra, a great bright mantra, a supreme mantra, an unequaled mantra. It can remove all suffering. It is genuine and not false. That is why the mantra of Prajnaparamita was spoken, recited like this. Gatte, gatte, paragatte, parasamgatte, bodhiswaha. Now I'd like to chant this last line, this gatte, gatte, paragatte, in just a more melodic way. We'll do it 3 times. And the translation of this is, translation that I like is gone, gone, gone beyond the beyond, awakened at last. Yeah. Gatte, gatte, paragatte, parasamgatte, bodhiswaha. Gatte, gatte, paragatte, parasamgatte, bodhiswaha. Gatte, gatte, paragatte, parasamgatte, bodhiswaha. Let's move down here to the great compassion mantra. You can see that. I'm trying to fit it all on there. Namo Dave Quang In Sa Namo Halla Danno Dolaye Namo Aliye Polu Jedi Shambolaye Buddhi Sattu Paye Moa samme sappa aduto shupang ashuryon Sado namo passado namo pachemo fatado dajatunana palushilu jadi jaladi ishini moha putti sato sappa sappa Mushi mushi rito yunjuru juru jimang duru duru fashayri moa fashayri tola tola dilini shirfalaya jalla jalla momo famola mudiri ishi ishi shurno shurno ala shanvola shali fasha fashion vola shaye hulu mola hulu hulu shiri sola sola shiri shiri sulu sulu putti e putto e miriri e nola ginger tiri shiny no payamono Supaha shito ye sopaha moha shito ye sopaha shito yu ye sherpana ye Nola ginger sopaha mola nola sopaha shiru sanga mujo ye sopaha sopa moha ashito ye sopaha jajira ashito ye sopaha bono moji shito ye paha nola ginger panjela ye sopaha Mopali shang jela ye sopahan namo hala dano dola ye namo ali ye polu jiri shao bola ye sopahan nan shidan du mandola pato ye sopa ha Namo Quan Shi Yin Pu Sa O Namo Quan Shi Yin Pu Sa E Namo Quan Shi Yin Pu Sa O Namo Quan Shi Yin Pu Sa E Namo Quan Shi Yin Pu Sa O Namo Quan Shi Yin Pu Sa Let's go into sitting from here. Allowing the sitting to be just a continuation of the chanting. The sound comes out of the silence and then the sound returns to silence. all within one awareness. So we enter into the last few minutes, the last 5 minutes or so. Can you relax just a little bit more? Perhaps be a bit more inclusive in your awareness. Notice any contraction or holding and just relaxing. Perhaps even notice that from the perspective of awareness that there's no difference between the arising of a thought, or the perception of the body, or the sounds. There's no need to do anything except for just be aware. Thank you all so much. And perhaps you want to stretch a little bit. Feel free to do that. Adjust. Bounce a little bit. You can do a little dance. All right, so for the rest of the time here, I'll just offer some dharma reflections. Yeah. So something that always strikes me about profound spiritual teachings, and specifically the teachings of the Buddha, is their simplicity. They're so simple. When you hear other spiritual masters, I think of like Ramana Maharshi or people like this. Their teaching is so simple as far as words go. It can be really good for us to challenge ourselves intellectually in study and argument and philosophy. It can be a really fun thing. Thinking about theories or reading the ancient masters and the ancient scholars. But the Buddha himself wasn't a scholar, at least that I know of. And there's something about getting kind of wrapped up in study that can actually become an impediment sometimes, because ultimately it doesn't matter how much we study or how much complicated philosophy we know or all of the arguments and all of the things. Ultimately these are just objects, right? They don't get us any closer to awakening, to awareness, to being more fully here now. My experience is that studying and reading and learning the philosophies, I really love it, and it has supported my practice in certain ways, by helping me to build confidence and just understanding, and it gives my brain something to do so that it can relax. But I've also found it to be an impediment at times where I seek it out, and sometimes these things can be a distraction. Because it's really about the simple looking. It's about the direct experience of awakening, of awareness. Is what we're trying to get to. Yeah. And that's how the Buddha taught. We hear the words of the Buddha, we read the words of the Buddha, and what tends to happen is we can overanalyze them and really break them down and write books about them, and all of these giant philosophical schools are created off a couple of words of the Buddha. But I don't think that was the intention of the Buddha, because the Buddha wasn't. I don't see the Buddha as sitting, at a desk with a bunch of texts and really parsing out all of the intricacies of intellectual study and coming up with these complicated things. Really what he was doing is he was just speaking from direct experience. He was speaking awakening, which is different than trying to communicate a particular philosophy. And it's so simple what he said. Not easy, but it was simple, right? And in many monastic traditions, they actually discourage book reading and studying, and in many lineages that we're familiar with. I think of Ajahn Chah talking about how the only book worth reading is the book of the heart. And this is what the Buddha was trying to communicate. This is what all these teachers try to communicate, is that everything we need, everything there is to know is available right here for us, right here, right now, in this present moment. There's nothing else that we really need. And so I think of Ajahn Chah as well, when he was Kitasaro's experience, asking him to get to know his breath really, really well. And once you learn one thing really well, you learn everything really well. Everything. And so it doesn't matter how much we study. We can't argue ourselves into awakening. We can't, create a particular logic that will hurl us into awakening. We can't intellectualize our journey. And as I said before, it can create, a deepening of this duality of subject and object, or this deepening of this separation. I was talking to a few years ago. I was talking to a graduate student at Harvard, and he was in the Buddhist Studies department, divinity school, and he was telling me that many of the professors actually discourage practice for those in Buddhist studies. They don't want you to meditate or do any practice because it would create too much bias in their study. Which makes sense from an intellectual, scholarly level, for sure. But it's so foreign to what the Buddha was actually trying to do. There's nothing wrong with doing this. I'm not trying to say there's anything wrong with it. It can actually be really fun and helpful, and I've gained lots of benefit from it. But I just find that really ironic. And so the Buddha himself sought direct experience. In fact, he went into the forest. That's what he did. He found teachers, which these teachers taught him practices. He mastered these practices and still couldn't find what he was looking for. He reached these really deep states of samadhi and concentration, and he sought more direct experience. It still wasn't solving the original problem, which was, why do we suffer? And so then he left these teachers and joined a band of practitioners who basically just tortured themselves for 7 years. And then he said, I'm just going to sit under this tree until I figure it out. And that's what he did. He didn't go to the library. He sat under a tree and looked deeply. And in his teaching, if you read it, he actually avoided complicated philosophical things. Is there a self? He never answered that question. Really? Is there a God? He never answered that question. He chose a middle way. Yeah, a middle way. And this middle way is not like the halfway point between two extremes. That's kind of how we think about it sometimes. It's like in this point, which is a very weak place to be. It's kind of like a lukewarm, kind of weak position. Like, I don't want to choose either. But he sought to have no views. That's what he was saying. No views, no positionality when it came to matters of reality, of these big philosophical things. When it came to social order, when it came to justice issues, when it came to war and caste and things like this, he definitely had positions. He tried to stop wars several times. He tried to dismantle caste. He attempted to do lots of things that we could call social justice today. But when it came to philosophical matters, he refused to take positions on things, because to take any position would be to affirm a duality. It would be to side with the intellect over another position. right? So it's not an in-between point. It's an understanding of those places, but it's rather making the choice that I'm not going to succumb to this conditioned reality, because real reality is much bigger than positionality. Yeah. And so he saw it as an impediment, as taking one view or the other as to affirm untruth or unreality. It's actually an extremely brave way to live, and actually reflects real reality. To let go of views, to let go of positions, to let go of opinions, to let go of judgments, it liberates us, right? Which is liberation is very, very, very scary to the ego. It's very scary. I like this, this from Chogyam Trungpa. You've probably heard this before. It says, the bad news is that you're falling through the air, nothing to hang on to, no parachute. The good news is there's no ground, which I really like. I feel like much of our stress and much of our suffering comes from this seeking of a ground to stand on. Or we fear that either one day we're going to hit the ground really hard or we'll never find it. But there's nothing there to find. There is no ground. The ground doesn't exist. This search for ground is what we call samsara, the search for solidity. Yeah. And so we go in this circle, looking, seeking, searching for this thing that doesn't really exist. So we call off the search and we're liberated. One of my favorite teachings of the Buddha, really simple. You probably already know this, and I'm already running out of time, but I'll just talk about it really quickly. It's the Bahiya Sutta, which we all know, and it's in different places, and maybe you don't know it. I don't want to assume. But Bahiya of the bark cloth is what he was called. Bahiya. He has a backstory. I won't get into that now, but basically he wore this clothing made of bark, and it's kind of a spiritual teacher. But at one point he started to question his own realization. He didn't know. He's like, I don't know whether I've reached arhantship or not. You know, how do I know this? Like, and this deva visited him and basically said, you haven't, and you're not even on the right path, but you can go to this one teacher and he will teach you the way to get there. And so Bahiya went to the Buddha and found where the Buddha was and was looking for him, and he happened to be on alms rounds. And so in alms rounds, it's not an appropriate time to ask questions because, you know, it's a very it's a time of receiving food, and you don't just disturb that. It's a very sacred time. And so Bahiya found the Buddha, and he found the Buddha and said, hey, Buddha, will you teach me? Will you teach me? Will you give me a teaching? And the Buddha said, come back later. You know, we're on alms rounds now. This is an appropriate time, and you know, come later, and I'll give you a teaching. And then a second time he said, Buddha, please, I need a teaching. You know, I came all this way, came here really quickly. Give me a teaching. He said, no, again, this is not an appropriate time. And so he persisted. The third time he said, it's difficult to know how long I'm going to live or how long you're going to live. And I'm here right now. Can you please give me a teaching? And he gave in. He said, all right, this is how you should train yourself. In the scene will be merely what is seen, and the heard will be merely what is heard, and the sensed will be merely what is sensed, and the cognized will be merely what is cognized. In this way, you should train yourself, Bahia. When Bahia for you and the seen is merely what is seen, and the cognized is merely what is cognized, then Bahia, you will not be with that. When Bahia, you are not with that, then Bahia, you will not be in that. When Bahia, you are not in that, then Bahia, you will be neither here nor beyond nor in between the two. Just this is the end of suffering. I find it really interesting that in the urgency of him needing a teaching, talking about how we, both of us might, be dead, this is this teaching that he gave. It's not some complicated philosophical thing. It's not some huge tome on the nature of reality. It's available right here, right now for you in the seen, the heard, and the cognized. And I think this is such a beautiful, beautiful way to be, is we don't need, we tend to complicate everything. And when we see when we see in the scene, when we're just seeing, just hearing, just cognizing, we're not story making, we're not creating a separate self, we're not creating an other, then the truth naturally arises. Yeah. So in the seen, in the heard, in the cognized. And he finished with this spontaneous poem, the Buddha. It says, where neither water nor yet earth, nor fire nor air gain a foothold, there gleam no stars, no sun sheds light, there shines no moon, yet there no darkness reigns. When a sage, a Brahmin, has come to know this for himself through his own wisdom, then he is freed from form and formless, freed from pleasure and from pain. And so he's speaking directly to groundlessness here, not landing. When we're creating story making, we're creating a this and a that. We're creating a separation. And with the Buddha's central teaching here, in the case of Bahia, I'm about to die. What can you give me? In the seen, there is only the seen. In the heard, there is only the heard. In the cognized, there is merely the cognized. This is the way to liberation. So that's our practice. That's what we attempt to do, is clear away the muck, the things that confuse us or get in the way, and to attempt to see clearly. Yeah, the simplicity of sitting, the simplicity of presence, the simplicity of hearing, seeing, cognizing. Yeah, because in that, all of those are different expressions of consciousness, of the one consciousness. Yeah. And without obstruction, the truth naturally arises. Can't believe I'm out of time. I could go for a longer time, but if you want to stick around, we'll do some Q&A here. I hate to cut it off right here, but thank you so much for being here. Hopefully this was helpful for you. I really love being in Sangha, chanting and sitting together and being able to share Dharma. If you feel inspired to share Dana, I put the link in the meeting chat. And so your Dana will go towards Sacred Mountain Sangha and also to all the teachers who teach during this time. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Yeah.